Today we have Paul Gautschi here, who many of you are here to see. He is the star of Back to Eden Film, the documentary that is all about growing your food with no-till, no-dig organic methods. And today he's going to talk about all of the tips and tricks to get the best success with growing your own food and why it's so important for the future of food. Paul, it's so good to connect with you. Your garden looks beautiful as usual behind you there. And we just wanted to dive right in. The title of this year's summit is The Future of Food. Why is healthy soil so critical for the future of food?
Thing is, you are what you eat. And if plants are growing in deficient soil, they're going to be deficient. And you want to have really good food, and so it's important to have good soil.
By digging and tilling the soil, we release carbon. By not digging, we store carbon. Why is it so important that we stop tilling the soil for the future of food?
Well, they've done a test. They found that when food growing in tilled soil has 60% less nutrients than plants growing in untilled soil. And see, when you till soil, you kill all the living organisms. You actually sterilize the soil, which is so brain dead, And if you look at nature, the soil's never disturbed. It's always covered. That's what I'm doing here. And it's just so amazing how when you create a covering, how the soil is always in upgrade state, always getting better. It just there's no ceiling. It just keeps getting better and better and better.
And we know that you grow everything organically using no pesticides, no chemicals, no herbicides. Why is eliminating the dependence on chemical fertilizers and pesticides so important for the future of food?
Well, one thing is the chemical fertilizers are poisonous. I don't know if you know where they come from, but they come from explosives. You know that after World War II, the chemical companies had made a lot of money on explosives. They didn't want to keep losing their money, so they turned it into fertilizer. And so all your fertilizer is created from explosives, which is not good for your body. I mean, this is common sense stuff, And so and then the other thing is being dependent. Whatever happens if the systems don't fail, you can't get the stuff. Where if you're growing everything organically and you're putting back in the soil, you have no dependence. What I love about what's happening here is everything in my yard was created in nature for free. It's renewable and it's non-toxic. That's awesome. Where everything that they're providing for you is expensive, limited, and toxic.
Why do you personally care so much about growing healthy food?
Because I want to feel well. I want to not get sick. And it's just I haven't had a cold or a flu for over 30 years, because it's just when you're eating good food you can't get sick. It's not possible.
And how has growing live fresh food impacted your health personally?
Well, like I told you, I haven't had a sickness or a cold or flu for over 30 years. That's pretty cool. And I think it's just I have energy. I don't get tired. I sleep well. I'm healthy, and healthy is really good. It feels good.
I think people will be really happy to hear that you're healthy. We had sent out a newsletter informing people that you closed your garden tours on Sundays, and we got a ton of emails of people really worried that you had closed them for some health reason or a reason that you were sick or something. So in fact, you are healthy, you're alive, you're well. And so could you inform people why you did make the decision to close the garden tours on Sundays and what you are currently offering?
Because I don't walk well, I'm really slow, and so it's really really difficult to conduct a tour. But people are still welcome to come, and they still do come. And we can sit on the porch, and I can answer questions. I get my chair out here and cruise around the garden orchard. And so I'm still welcoming people to come. I'm just not doing a formal, Sunday tour anymore. But nothing's changed as far as people being available. I'm available. I want people to come. I want people to see this. So that hasn't changed at all.
We also noticed that you have a fundraising campaign that somebody else started for you on a website called Give, Send, Go. And we wanted to ask you the tank that you're fundraising for to get around your property. How's that going? Tell us about it. And it looks like you're sitting on it right now.
Well, I'm sitting in it. This is such an incredible blessing. This is a track chair. It has tracks instead of wheels, and so you can use it off road. And it's such a blessing. I can get my wagon behind. I can haul brush out to the burn pile, set the chicken pen, and it's just made it so much easier for me to get in and out of my garden. And again, it's just, I can get to places quick where I can't walk that fast. So I've been really thankful to have this.
For gardeners that are just installing their garden for the first time, what would you recommend that they plant if they're just starting out? Like, for example, if you were just starting a garden for the first time, what plant would you plant in your garden?
Well, I like, greens are really great, and they grow pretty quickly. Um, just, everything in the garden, may like we just 1 row of cucumbers here. We picked 50 cucumbers the other day. And we have so much, and it's all so good. I mean, everything is just good, and so. And then the seasons are important. There's some things you can't grow certain times of the year, and so you want to adjust your growing to the seasons. And then I have good stuff all winter long because I plant appropriately so that they get mature. They stay in the ground all winter and they're good.
On that note, what are you the most excited about that you're growing right now in your orchard?
It's just good. I mean, everything just tastes so good. It's just so we've been eating all these figs, and now the apples are coming on, and just the pears, and so it's just continuously getting abundant, good food, and just it tastes so good.
I remember that you told us that you first mulched your orchard with straw and sheep manure and later started mulching with wood chips. When did you start mulching your orchard?
Well, when I came here, I drilled a well at 213 feet and got half a gallon a minute, no water. So I'm asking God, God, how can I grow fruit trees without water? He says, come out to the woods and I'll show you. And that day changed my life. I'm so thankful for that lousy well because it opened me up to how nature works. And I came out to my woods in August. All my grass is totally dead. The road's all dusty. And I come out to the woods and the ground below the wood chips are totally damp and soft. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And so that just opened me up to the incredible effect of covering and how with my orchard has not been watered or fertilized for 43 years. And we've had major droughts and the trees haven't had any effect at all. So it's been so amazing how it works.
We love that you're planting so many annual vegetables under your fruit trees now and that they are just thriving. When did you start planting annuals under your fruit tree orchard?
Well, I started with potatoes, and what was interesting is watching them grow. As I'm watching potatoes grow, what got my attention was under the trees in the shade, the plants are much taller and thicker stems and greener. I'm thinking like, wait a minute, it should do better in full sun. How come it's doing better in the shade? And then it just like blew, and then I'm asking God, I says, well, what's up with that? He says, well, wait till you harvest the potatoes. So I'm going to harvest the potatoes. The closer I get to the tree, the bigger the potatoes are. I'm thinking like, wow. And I had fingerling potatoes. I'm not exaggerating. Fingerling potatoes, a foot long, 3 inches wide. They don't get that big. I'm thinking like, what? And it's just so, and basically it's a symbiotic relationship. They're feeding one another. The trees and the produce are supporting one another in the most amazing relationship. And what I love about this is that your ground space, you don't have to have one or the other. You can grow a ton of food under your trees, so you don't need a whole lot of extra space because it's available.
How often do you add arborist wood chips to your orchard?
What's been so fun to watch is when I first came here, my soil was really bad, and the woods just broke down quickly because the soil was hungry. Now, after all these years, I don't know, it's been years since I've added in the wood chips. They're just holding so well. And what I'm loving about this is that as I get older, it becomes easier, less work. It's so fun. It's such a great idea.
What else do you add to your orchards? Do you add screened compost or fertilize in any way, manure, ash? Now that you grow annuals, what do you add to your orchard?
Just wood chips are amazing. There's just no medium that can compare. They're just so pleasant to be on, to walk on, how they feed the soil. They're the best. You look at my trees, how dark green the foliage is and how productive they are. I mean, you're not going to get that with fertilizer. I don't know if you'll be able to, but I wish he could go over here and look at my fig tree. You haven't never seen a fig tree so abundantly full of foliage and the leaves so huge and dark green. And if you look at the ground under it, It's all wood chips. I don't even water. I mean, it's just dramatic how effective the covering is. These are fig trees, and I planted these here several years ago. I just put a stick in the ground, and they grow really well. And if you just look at how, I mean, I prune these things down every year to where I can reach everything. And all this upright growth, all this density is just like 1 year's growth. It's just amazing to me how much these trees grow. And if you look at the soil below, it's all in wood chips. I don't fertilize, I don't water. It's just wood chips do it all. It's amazing. You see the result right away, and over time it just improves, keeps getting better. It's like upgrading, just and it happens right away because as soon as you put the cover on and water goes through it, it creates compost tea, and that feeds the soil. So it's not a time frame. It's just it's like it's like a multiplication process that just keeps improving over time.
What are you the most excited about in your garden right now?
I just, am so impressed with the flavor. Every time I go out there and eat something like that, this tastes so good. It's just like, wow, because it keeps getting better. It's just like, I don't remember it that good. It's awesome. There's beets. I just planted some red onions, cilantro. We're coming to kind of the end of the season, so I'm not planting anymore. September's end of planting, but those beets and carrots will stay all winter out there because they're full size, and the ground will support them, and I'll have food all winter. And I'm starting to harvest my potatoes, and they're so good, and I love potatoes.
How often is it that you add the screened wood chips, and how thick do you add them to your vegetable garden?
What I'm doing in the garden is that every other year I add a layer of half the garden, about 2 inches of wood chips every other year, and that's been doing great. It's just been holding fine.
How often do you add chicken manure compost and how thick do you add it?
I add that when I have to. When the fence starts getting too short, then I have to get in there and I have to lower the grade. So I don't keep track of the time, but it's just when I see the chickens are flying out. Well, I better get this stuff out of here.
Some people that are germinating seeds in a wood chip garden, especially when using fresh arborist wood chips, have two different struggles with germinating their seeds. One is that the wood chips can fall back over on the seeds and they struggle with germination. And two is that more decomposer insects might be working on breaking down the mulch and end up eating their sprouts. What seed germinating tips can you offer beginner gardeners for success who are struggling?
Well, you want to plant the seeds in soil always, and plant shallow. Here's the rule of thumb: you want to plant the seed twice as deep as the thickness of the seed. If you look in nature, the creator never buries seeds. He just lays them on the ground, and they all grow fine. We they tell you in the package, plant the seed an inch deep. That's way too deep. Never plant it that deep.
The last time that we talked, you told us that you were saving your own seed and that it was superior to buying seeds from any company. Are you still saving your own seeds?
Yes, for sure, because my seed's better than what I can buy. I'll just give you an example. I bought some cucumber seeds from an organic, good seed company, and in the row I planted, only 9 came up. I'm thinking, like, what's up with this? I collected my seed, and every one came up. Even though they're organic, they're still not growing in soil this good.
And what tips do you have for people? Do they have to worry about cross pollination, or how do you successfully save seed after its own kind?
Yeah, cross-pollination is a serious issue. If you want clean seed, make sure you're not growing any other variety but that one, because cross-pollination happens, and it really affects seeds. So it's very, very important to make sure your seed is clean and not, mess with cross-pollination.
One of the questions that we get asked the most is what is the best type of wood chip? So we wanted to ask that question to you. What is your favorite type of wood chip and what do you like best for your vegetable gardens?
Well, alder breaks down the quickest, but I like all of them, and they all work fine. It's all good. Well, because I live in the Northwest, we have evergreens. I get a lot of fir and cedar because that's just what grows here, So that's probably the most common, varieties I get. But I get everything.
According to research, younger branches of trees that are chipped up finely are the best wood chips in terms of nutrient composition. Can you describe your favorite characteristics of an ideal arborist wood chip load for your vegetable garden?
Well, it's the needles and leaves that have the life force. The wood is just there to kind of cover it and hold it in place. So the more leaves and needles and leaves you have, that's the best. So ideally, trees that are done in the summer is better than the ones done in the winter when they don't have leaves. Yeah, the finer stuff is just much more pleasant to work with.
There are two primary ways that people use arborist wood chips in their gardens. One is to get the arborist wood chip load delivered and apply it fresh while everything is still green and really fresh. The other way is to let it decompose in a pile or do some type of composting and processing. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer to allow your piles to decompose before you apply them or to use the wood chips fresh?
Well, it doesn't matter to me because as soon as it gets there, it's going to start composting and feeding the soil. So, in whatever state it is, it's okay. I don't have any preference.
How can back to Eden gardening be applied to raised beds?
It's the same method. Just have a covering. Just put wood chips over the top of your bed, whether it's in a pot or a raised bed or on the ground. It works the same in any situation.
If someone is installing a raised bed garden, what would you recommend that they fill the raised bed with? Or what are the layers that you would recommend that people garden with in a raised bed?
Well, if you have compost, that would be the best. It's all going to turn to soil eventually, but
We also remembered that you sometimes grow things in containers or pots around your property, like your comfrey, that would otherwise be quite invasive or have roots that spread. Are there any tips that you have for people who are wanting to grow the Back to Eden method in containers?
well, plants that really spread, you want to make sure you grow in containers. Otherwise, they'll take your place over. And comfrey is one. See, my challenge here is stopping growth, trying to keep it in place because it just spreads like crazy. And if I don't cut my herbs down when they go to seed, I had them everywhere. So I have to be very, very careful on controlling my growth, not trying to get it to grow.
You only get an average of 16 inches of annual rainfall in Squim since you're in the rain shadow on the Olympic Peninsula, and actually sometimes less with recent droughts. How often do you now need to water your vegetable gardens and orchards using this method?
Well, the orchard has never been watered, ever. And I think that's awesome. In the garden, I water when needed. It's just, the plant, at the end of the day, after you want to look at the plant, and if it's looking a little wilted, then water. If it's looking fine, you're okay. If you can look over here, you can see I have these sprinklers, and they're way high because the water gets, overhead watering is the best way to water next to sub irrigation. And the worst way to water is drip irrigation. That is totally ineffective and really a waste of time and energy because it never gets the whole root mass. It just emits in a small place. So overhead watering, like rain, is the ideal. Well, I have an example. Like I have a dwarf plum tree that had root shoots coming out, 35-foot radius, not diameter, 35-foot radius from the trunk. This is a dwarf tree. You're not supposed to have roots that spreading. See, plants that are growing in hard, compacted soil don't have many roots, and they can't take up water. But when you have a root system spread out in such huge space, they're eating well because they have a lot of resource.
So, to close the conversation with you, we wanted to ask, why do you hope that everyone starts to grow their own food in the future?
Because you're going to need to. Because the stuff in the store is not safe to eat. And they're going to create food shortages because they want to reduce the population. The powers that be are not friendly. And they're going to intentionally reduce our food to reduce population. And so for survival's sake, just bottom line, we're going to have to grow our own food. To me, really important to be growing food. And I think, if you have space, plant fruit trees. Because fruit trees will feed you for generations. and you can still grow produce under them. So I think fruit trees are a really important investment to put in your place, because fruit is going to be so important. And again, the stuff in the store is not safe to eat. It's really getting bad. Just for an example, I had a young boy come here on a tour. He is 9 years old, and he says, "I'm allergic to apples. I can't eat apples." I said, "I want you to look at my face." He says, "You're not allergic to apples. There's nothing wrong with your body. The apples you're eating are poisonous, and your body's responding to them that way. So while you're here, you eat all the apples you want. You have no reaction." "You don't understand." I said, "I understand, but that won't happen here." So he's watching all these people buy apples. "Can you believe the flavor of this?" So this kid eats this apple and starts yelling at the top. "I'm not reacting. I'm not reacting." I thought it was so cool, man. He got it. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. The apples are wrong. The covering is significant. It's just, I'm telling you, there's nothing more amazing than a good covering on the ground, how it feeds your soil. And it just keeps getting better and better. It's just so good.